Welcome back to Coloring Crypto. Today, we've got our old crew, Dan and Andrew and myself, doing a review of the state of crypto. This is the thing we started doing in episode 17 and revisited episode 52. And we cover what's been going on with crypto. Let us know what you think of this episode. Hit me on Twitter at GabeColors, GabeColors. Check out our sponsor, Hudoku, the color puzzle, on the App Store. And I hope you enjoy. All right, well, we're back. Coloring Crypto. This is our summary roundup reunion. We've got Dan and Andrew back on board for this Coloring Crypto episode. How's it going out there? Give us your status, Dan.
My status?
Where are you at?
I am I'm on Interstate 95, two hands on the wheel, heading through Connecticut somewhere.
All right. Andrew?
That's my...
Yeah, I'm here at Benja World Headquarters in San Francisco. I'm doing great.
All right, let me. I know you guys got topics. I want to just jump in on something. It's going to cover a bunch of tangents, and we'll see where that takes us. And if it doesn't take us anywhere, we will see what you guys got. So we're going to cover the price of things out there, but just current topics like what's been happening with crypto, and also this first one is going to expand a little bit beyond crypto, and I think that's the direction I want to take this podcast. It's been maybe a month since the last episode where Tegan and Miko and I discussed Facebook's entrance into crypto. And, this is the beginning of October 2019 right now. So much is happening in the news and, it's just everything's moving so fast. But the SEC, so, since we've talked, the SEC has been doing something in the crypto space. And they recently took Block One, which is responsible for the coin, EOS, and they levied a $24 million fine on Block One. And that was basically for, Block One releasing their ICO and the SEC determining that it was a security. And so that meant that they had not registered, done all the paperwork with the SEC, which nobody was doing. And it was always a question of are these securities or not? And so SEC said it was a security, but levied them $24 million as a fine, which was I think less than 1% of their total raise. Andrew, are you still there?
Yep.
Okay, I lost Dan. I got to get him. Hold and accept and then accept. Let's see.
There, I'm going to stop at the next exit and just pull off the side of the road.
Yeah, none of this dropping out stuff, buddy. Okay, so I'm just summarizing, and so on Twitter, one of the my favorite sort of accounts to follow is Catherine Wu. I'll put her Twitter in the show notes, but she does this really cool. She took the whole SEC announcement like a PDF, and she puts it in her notepad and just colors all over it. And so at first it looks like a little kid is just drawing, but you get into it, and it's a really, really great insight. But the general tone from most of the people I follow, like the last guest, Miko and Tegan, was, wow, they really got off. They really got away with no fine. And then I saw this guy, Eric Voorhees, who is a strikingly strong-minded libertarian, kind of going, why are people in crypto upset that they didn't get a big fine? Why is everybody wanting, the SEC to do big fines? And so I want to hear you guys' thoughts on the whole thing and kind of generally, did you think it was a big fine or a little fine?
Yeah, I think what was striking to me about the Block One penalty is that it was slightly different than what we saw with other previous SEC action. When it came to the Munchie ICO, for example, part of the action, which we have some familiarity with, Munchie was ordered to return investor funds. You did not see that here with Block One, so that piqued my interest. What's also interesting is, given that, I would have assumed, okay, Block One paid a penalty and then ultimately registered as a security. It does not appear to be the case. in the SEC press release itself, they actually say Block 1 has consented to the order without admitting or denying the findings of the SEC investigation, which makes me think they did not, register as a security or anything as part of this. So that was curious. Just kind of grabbed my attention. This feels a little bit like the Facebook fine, where nothing concrete is actually happening, and you're fining this organization for something huge, and the fine's pretty small. I do agree. I don't think that the government should be taking a larger piece here, but I'm just curious as to why the SEC didn't require a security registration or take any other kind of action along with the fine.
And by the Facebook fine, you're talking about the FTC fining Facebook $5 billion, which is a lot more than $24 million. But that, across every respected pundit I read, was nothing for Facebook.
Right.
They've got that money sitting around, and so it's not going to. It's part of their business plan to pay these fines, pay a parking ticket, and move on. And it's
it
kind of
felt like that. It felt like the parking ticket.
Yeah, Laura Shin, who has her own crypto podcast, said they should call it Block 1, WON, Block 1.
Well, yeah, I think they did win. You're paying 0.6% of the entirety of what you raised.
Yeah.
So that's what it comes down to, right? If you raised money and then were taxed on the gains for that, they'd be paying a lot more than that. So I think they did come away with a metaphorical slap on the wrist in this situation. And the fact
I think a lot of people out there are probably looking back going because I think there was a real fear that the SEC would come in. It was so vague that they would come in and just they would lock people up as a worst case scenario for the crypto world. But also people were wanting some regulation because there were so many scams out there.
But see, in the United States, I think that under this current administration, you don't have regulation.
Yeah.
So no, and I'm saying, and that goes across the board, right? Whether it's the SEC, the IRS, anything that could have a detrimental effect on the crypto market, it's just not there, and not under this administration, not at all.
Well, this is actually, I'm glad you went there, because I think this is what's interesting is Facebook. They're going into crypto, but their fine, their $5 billion was small. And okay, let me back up. So Eric Voorhees, the libertarian guy on crypto, big rich crypto guy, very libertarian. And I want to talk about the only feed I have on my Twitter feed that is sort of got a lot of Trump fans is my crypto feed. And so that's, Nick Szabo, one of the godfathers of crypto, is a big Trump guy. And it's just a trip to see what's happening. Like you say, Dan, now is the best time to be a white collar criminal, and
yeah. When you have one in the top position of the country, then everything down from that is seemingly legal now.
Do you think there's an awareness right now of Mark Zuckerberg literally had an all hands phone call released by Casey Newton of The Verge, and in it somebody asked him about the upcoming presidential election, and he said, hey, if Elizabeth Warren gets elected and they try to do this, we will file a lawsuit against the government and go to the mat to fight this. And so maybe people are afraid that Trump's going to leave, and so all the white collar criminals are taking their chance right now to just do every scam possible.
Well, it makes sense. Well, here's the thing, Gabe. It makes sense as a private company that you would be against somebody who's willing to crack down on regulation, right? And if there's the slightest hint that the next Democratic president would crack down on regulation, whether it be Elizabeth Warren or otherwise, why would you? Obviously he's going to threaten to take it to the Supreme Court or however high he can go.
So now is the time. It's an amazing thing. I had on one of these Twitter feeds, somebody brought up breaking up Facebook and breaking up Google, and I said, it's sort of there's a tax any startup has to pay to Google and Facebook because if you if you have a company, you've got to buy the keyword of your company and pay them just to get your listing up. To have your Facebook page, you've got to pay to get any traction. And for Google, you want your company's name to show up in the top. You got to pay for that ad. And so it's like this fee to just be in the current industry of whatever you're doing. Anyway, I said break them up, and somebody said, how would you break up? I'm just surprised in the crypto community, there seems to be the strong libertarians that don't want to break up Facebook and Google, and that confuses me. And then also just the amount of Trump love.
I have a few things here. I mean, I would love to engage with you on the break up big tech issue, because I don't think breaking up big tech does anything, and I don't think it's really. I don't know. We can leave it there, but I don't think that that's directly related to what we're here to talk about, which is crypto and how this environment is working. What I think is interesting is that Trump has come out and said, that they don't like Bitcoin, that they don't like cryptocurrency, that they're going to pursue this, and by all accounts, just nothing has happened. I think that's the larger point, and what's actually worth kind of tracking.
Well, I think that these are actually relevant topics, as all these things are kind of feeling like may have something to do with each other at some point. Crypto merging with I think there's a conversation around crypto and breaking up big tech. And one of those is, Andrew Yang, the candidate for president, came out and said we should all own our own data. And people have often said, well, blockchain is how we do that. And also for the elections, in election fraud, people are saying use the blockchain for that. I think it's too early for people to trust that, even though it may be the most trustworthy way to do elections. But I think all these are on the table, man. You want to expand on why you think not breaking up? I think Google and Facebook are just too big. They're just too dominant. They got to be broken up, not necessarily divided out.
How do you do that?
Companies.
And how would you do that? Would a government regulation have to come in and say, well, Google Ads, you have to be your own service. Google Images, you have to be your own service. How does that even work?
Well, okay, remember in the beginning, they were going to be a directory for the world, and then companies like Yelp came along and said, hey, we're gonna be your Yellow Pages for food, whatever, and your ratings for food. And Google used to, go to the Yelp's page for that. Now Google has their own stuff. They've got their own maps with their own. They keep eating every one of their clients' industries, and they have this massive window into what's effective and what's needed and what those things are. And so I think you got to say to them, one idea is you guys, if you're going to be the directory, you've got to separate that as a different company or a silo that doesn't talk to the other ones. Because they can just continue favoring their own entities, like way back in the day when Microsoft, the government came in and said they can't put the browser icon for Internet Explorer on the desktop.
Dave, I think you're under the impression that the government is no longer antiquated and somehow has an ability to persecute companies if they don't violate antitrust laws, and maybe just if they're running monopolies. The FCC right now is run by a former lobbyist of Verizon in Ajit Pai. So I'm just trying to understand why you think that the government is somehow going to. I'm just saying, I just don't think right now in the current atmosphere, the government's not going to come in and say, well, you know what, Facebook, Google, you're too big, because that wouldn't behoove them, right? Because they have multiple employees on their Menlo Park campus that are making $200,000, $300,000 a year and paying 46% in taxes. So sure, the company in itself isn't paying as much tax as the government may necessarily like, but their employees sure are.
Well, it is. Yeah, go ahead.
I also I kind of balk at the notion that Facebook and Google have been anti-competitive. I think something that I've heard Kara Swisher say, for example, talking about Facebook, is saying wow, okay, Facebook has been anti-competitive because there has not been a social network, a major social network launched since 2009, referencing Snap. and saying like all that they've done is knock off their competitors and try and do all this. I don't think that that's a reflection of them being anti-competitive. I think Snap existing and thriving to the extent that they have, you know, especially when Facebook's been ripping off things like stories and stuff like that from this competition. And the fact that Snap still exists, you know, proves that Facebook just can't step in and eat anybody's lunch. And then the other thing is, I think there have been a lot of new social networks, but I think that the shape of social networking has just shifted. And I think that like Strava, for example, is a social network. It is a workout app where you're like logging your runs and you're logging your swimming and you're logging bike rides and things like that. But along with that, like you're posting photos and you're sharing it with a specific niche and you're liking and you're commenting and you're doing all that stuff. I just think that like the shape of social media has shifted and that, you know, social media is more niche focused and there's just different applications of it. And then when it comes to Google, like, yeah, they're just like the best at a lot of this stuff. You know, like I think the three of us have iPhones. We probably all use Google Maps, or 2 out of 3 of us. I don't know.
I have deleted Apple Maps.
I'm using it right now to get home.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, right. So we all actively chose to delete the built-in Maps app in favor of Google because they make the best Maps app. And I just think it's that simple. It's not that I'm being pressured to go to Google versus anything else. It's because I wanted the best Maps app, and I chose the best one. And but if you open up Andrew's Bakery in a small town, and I'm in that small town, and I type in Andrew's Bakery, what if every competitive bakery in that town could buy the top 4 listings? And it used to be like the top 1, but I'm searching for Andrew's Bakery. I heard about Andrew's Bakery. I want to go. That's where I want to go. And then suddenly Dan's Bakery pops up because Dan's paying Google for that listing. So I've got to pay Google just for people to find me when they already wanted to find me. Yeah, but search is increasingly fragmented because search happens not just in the web browser. It happens on your phone now. So when on your iPhone, for example, when you pull down on your main screen and you type something in, and it shows you results from apps that you have. It shows you results from the notes that are on your phone. It shows you results, whatever. And then it starts baking in like web results and based on, that's not a Google search. There's a lot of different ways that people find these things now. I don't think that Google is the only game in town that's going to sink Andrew's Bakery. Yeah, I mean,
you're fine.
All of this
you're
is the
fine
point.
with that.
I'm just good. Like I
think Andrew's Bakery is just selling stale muffins. So
I think
I'm not even going to your bakery anymore.
I think Andrew's Bakery is not going to make it, and it's not going to be Google's fault. I think it's just going to be because I don't know how to bake.
It's because you're making stale muffins, man.
Yeah. Anyway, I don't know that it's a square hit on crypto or Bitcoin or any of this kind of stuff, but I think that the anti-competitive stuff is overblown.
All right, well let's switch to the prices of all these things. It was maybe what, 8 months ago in Bitcoin, or 4 months ago when it was at like $4,000. Now it's at about $8,000. It went as high as $12,000. One of our former guests, Usman, ran some math and said that it's going to go down to 7,800, and then it's going to go back up to whatever 1,820. Have you guys been following the price? Like, what's your take on it? What to buy and all the prices?
I mean, I think a buy, and this goes back multiple years, but I think DCAing Bitcoin is the smartest thing you can do, right? Dollar cost average. So if you think that there's a certain time where you need to buy a boatload of Bitcoin versus not buying Bitcoin, you're doing yourself a disservice. If you go in and you're like, you know what, I can afford $200 a month in Bitcoin, and what you do is you buy $50 a week and that's it, right? Because you can't, if you get caught up in the intraday and day-to-day price, unless you're a trader, but most people have 40-hour work weeks, right? And that doesn't include sitting there and waiting on what's the perfect and exact time to buy. Then you're always accruing, you're always quote unquote stacking sats, if you will. And so if you're not just, if you're like, I have $200 to buy and I'm going to sit there and wait until I think is the best possible moment, you may miss that moment. You may miss that moment because Bitcoin is so volatile and illiquid. Even now, it can jump $200, $300, $400, $500, $600 in minutes. And then guess what? You missed whatever boat you thought you had 20 minutes ago.
And that goal being that decades from now, you've got your retirement money.
Of course.
Totally.
Because if you're looking at it like a macro asset and not a micro asset, then yeah, long term is how you want to play Bitcoin.
Yeah. That was just to throw a plug for Terrence Yang and his episode with Uncoloring Crypto. That was his big push, was the dollar cost average technique.
And I still think to this day it's the best way to continue accruing crypto, because if you sit there and think about, well, damn, I didn't buy any at 8,200 or 8,300 like it is today because it ends up at 9,500 by this time next week, because you're sitting there waiting for it to dip to 72, then you're just going to kick yourself. So yeah, buy $50 at 14K and then buy $50 at 8K. I don't think there's a wrong time to buy crypto, because looking back 5-10 years from now, you're not going to care whether you bought at 8 or 14. I can tell you that with an utmost guarantee.
And what about the slice of the pie of the total crypto market for coins? And you're referencing just Bitcoin, right?
I am, in this case, yes.
And so, obviously, a lot of the altcoins that made up the bulk of that whole pie have just completely gone away.
Yes.
But what are your thoughts about like Ethereum versus Bitcoin?
See, and here's what I think is interesting. There was a point in time, and it was the last roundtable discussion that we had, turning the year from 2017 to 2018 when we were having this roundtable discussion. And I remember it clearly because I said something, my biggest prediction, quote unquote, was that Bitcoin was not going to be was not going to have the largest market cap at some point. And we're getting close to that. But now to the point of being now a Bitcoin maximalist, if you will, I see it as, I think there was one alt season and one alt season only.
What brought you around to being a Bitcoin maximalist? All the altcoins dying.
Well, there are certain so like certain altcoins are not pre-mined or are pre-mined, whereas Bitcoin is not. Certain altcoins, I'm trying to figure out. But they were all trying to just copy Bitcoin, right, as being a cryptocurrency. And I see Bitcoin as the OG, whereas these other ones are, even Litecoin is just a copycat. So where I can see, okay, well, yeah, a year ago you could have asked me about Litecoin, and I'll be like, yeah, Litecoin at some point should be worth a quarter of what Bitcoin is, because it's basically Bitcoin, but 4 times faster transaction times and 4 times the amount. There are 84 million total instead of 21 million. And so I saw it and I was like, oh, all right, Litecoin, is basically going to be just a quarter of Bitcoin. But then I realized that it's not Bitcoin, and it was created after Bitcoin. And it's just this afterthought of what Bitcoin was, and Charlie Lee created it as this idea that it was going to be Bitcoin, but faster and cheaper to transact.
Andrew, are you also now a Bitcoin maximalist?
Yes. I don't know if I can see an actual use case for anything else.
That's a bold statement.
No, I agree too.
I paused on it, but give me a use case. Anyone.
Well, I think there's a lot of more relevant ones than the one I'm going to bring up right now, but the non-fungible token reality with like ERC 720s. And I've been talking about this for a month, but I'm scheming and getting a hold of anybody involved in NFTs, particularly the art world. There's some just this slow, steady increase in the buzz of companies like Super Rare that are having artists release digital art as single copies, protected as single copies by the blockchain, and they're selling them. And it's cool. It's not taking the world.
I dig non-fungible tokens, and I dig Bitcoin, but I think that, and there are other use cases, but I think that what's become clear to me over the course of the last 3 years is that a lot of those other tokens, the purpose that they serve is really like B2B or internal use within a company. There's not a lot of like consumer tokens that make a whole lot of sense.
Okay, I've got one or two more topics here. Before we get to those, I know, Dan, you had mentioned some news in Venezuela. Or what else have you, Dan, you've always got something up your sleeve. Am I right to guess you got something else?
Yeah. So what I've been looking at, and you said Venezuela, and that was one of the things I wanted to talk about, because I think that over the next year or 18 months, you're going to see a plethora of countries. Now, obviously, none in the G20, right? These are going to be fringe countries, countries that may not necessarily have a strong currency at all. So, talking about like the Argentinian peso or the Venezuelan bolivar, some of these countries that are undergoing either inflation or hyperinflation, they're going to start to announce that Bitcoin is their reserve currency. Right. The president of Belarus recently said that he was interested in mining Bitcoin for the country. So there are a number of countries around the globe right now, and I think we're at that point in Bitcoin's maturity, Bitcoin specifically, but I think that we're at that point in Bitcoin's maturity where we now have BACT, which is an ICE, the parent company of Nasdaq, physically settled futures. Which was recently released. We've got all of a number of different avenues for people who are interested, institutions that are interested in investing in something that will beat inflation, and in fact isn't inflationary. It's more so deflationary if you go over a long enough period of time. And by doing so, I think that countries are going to start taking a look at, much less countries, but people are going to start taking a look at, well, how does money work, right? So if you look at money, it's something that, at least in the United States, over the last 45 years, we haven't been on the gold standard, not since 1971. And so because of that, we're just held by the fact that it's the good faith of the U.S. government. And if you believe that, that's great, right? If you're a red-blooded patriot that believes that the U.S. will always be able to pay back its debt because our GDP is high enough, because, we're able to produce enough money, then that's wonderful, but it's not backed by anything. It's not backed by the fact that it's $35 an ounce for gold, because gold is now $1,500 an ounce since we've taken it off the gold, since we've taken the dollar off the gold standard. So I think a lot of countries are going to realize that, and it's going to start with the fringe countries, right? And so you're going to see countries like Venezuela and countries like Argentina and other countries that may not necessarily have the strongest dollar or whatever their brand of currency is, and they're going to utilize Bitcoin or Satoshis as their reserve currency. And so that's what I'm looking forward to over the next 12, 18, 24 months, because these countries are currently they're hurting. They're hurting against the U.S. dollar hard. So why hurt? Because across the board, every single currency since 2010 has lost 99.99% against Bitcoin. And I know that that means very little, but I think going forward, how much more do you want to lose? How many more decimal places do you want to push that 9? And I think if countries are quicker to realize it, that, hey, it's something that's finite, it's something that's public, right? The U.S. government doesn't have to announce when they print more money, like in overnight repos when they're printing $46 billion or $74 billion, or whatever they decide to print overnight to help lower the interest rate of something. We're getting very close to another recession, and you see it in that. You see it in the fact that the manufacturer auto report came out. Ford, GM, they're down 12% each. There are certain things, numbers that are coming out that are scary. That are scary to a lot of people because they happened on the fringe of the last recession in 2008, and that's what Bitcoin was created for. That was the whole premises of what Satoshi Nakamoto detailed in the white paper. So we're about to find out if Bitcoin truly does work in times of peril.
Right. That's the original essence. The original spirits. Did you see anything? I read a little bit about the Venezuela action, considering counting the Bitcoin in their international reserves. Did you get a sense of what percent holding of their international reserves they would I can't imagine they'd put more than a couple of percentage points. I don't know if you saw that.
Yeah, I don't know specifically, but I know that according to Bitcoin Magazine, they've traded 250 million in BTC in 2019. So that's a lot for a country that seemingly is broke. That's a lot of money.
Well,
so
and on
what?
Oh, I was moving on to Turkey. I mean, on the flip side, Turkey, Tegan Klein, our previous guest, just posted today that a link to Turkey has seized 3 million bank accounts in their country, which is a lot And, that's the argument against centralization in governments and, the essence of cryptocurrency and decentralization.
Yeah, and I think I saw something that, what was it, that, was it India or there was another giant country that limited withdrawals to a very, very small amount, per day or per week or per month, whether it's like $16, the equivalent of something ridiculous, where it's just like, if you're your own bank, and again, this goes back to the fact that how easy is it, what does the on-ramp look like? When the internet first started, the on-ramp wasn't easy. America Online came in and they were like, well, let's make it easy for everyone to get online and be able to use the internet. So, right, the internet itself wasn't necessarily easy to use, but once a company came in and made it, brought those, the avenues on or the highway on to allow people to utilize it, then it became a powerful tool. And I think the same goes for Bitcoin. As soon as we're able to become our own banks, right, and I know that there's the portion of the space that says not your keys, not your coins, but there are certain people that, they're not equipped to handle their coins, right? Unless are you downloading a full node and then keeping it on them, because even if you're buying like a ledger and keep that, then guess what? Technically, the company behind Ledger will technically have your keys. So, there are a lot of people that don't keep their money in their mattress. So why would they, necessarily keep their Bitcoin on a node?
All right, now I want to wrap this up with I think it'd be cool to do this every month, you guys, just for fun, and come up with some of these little segments. Like NPR Politics has their, what can you not let go of at the very end, and Bill Maher has his, I don't know it for a fact, I just know that it's true. This is my topic I want to throw out there, and you guys are welcome to do one as well. But right, so this is the subject. It may not seem related to crypto, and I can't tell you how it is, but I just know that it is. Trump and the impeachment, and I want predictions on this, but he basically now has gone full transparency to just basically explain what he did that was breaking the law and then say, what's wrong with this? And at the same time, the same week, the transcript, or like the audio file of Mark Zuckerberg's all-hands meeting was released. And so Zuckerberg immediately doubled down, and he did his next all-hands on his live Facebook feed. And so, this is the new normal, and I think it has something to do with cryptocurrency in a way of, this transparency, and somehow, just putting it all on the table and giving somehow the impression that it's not bad if it's already out there. But I think my prediction. Well, first of all, what do you guys think about that, and what do you think about what's your prediction for Trump's potential for impeachment?
I don't think it's going to happen. The Senate,
not even the vote.
Because the Senate is still controlled. Well, maybe there might be a vote, but the Senate is still controlled by the Republican Party, and therefore is probably not going to impeach the sitting president.
There's a difference between
regardless, I think that there has to be some sort of saving grace to the Republican Party. Even though they're a shell of what they were 5-6 years ago, I still think that whoever is currently nobody in their right mind would go against the president just because of his devout following in this space. If we're talking I don't think that's going to happen.
Andrew?
Yeah, I think, Dan, I think that you're talking about removal from office. You're not talking about impeachment. I do think that it's more likely that the House does hold the impeachment vote. Yeah, I mean, I don't think that we're looking at removal from office. And I do think that there's a solid part of this where, he made the ask to China this morning out in the open, and that's just kind of his defense now, right? He's just going to move this out into the open. Yeah, I agree. I dig it, Gabe. I get where you're putting down. I think it's a clear link to transparency and.
Yeah, it's a new thing to do. It's like, even Block One, Catherine Wu said the reason that, they got off as well as they did was they were, quote, totally open and working with, with them. And so will we see this be the new normal where as long as you're announcing your crime to the world, you can get away with it?
I dig it.
All right, last thoughts. No. All right, you guys, let's do this again. And you drop any plugs. You can reach me and Color and Crypto at Gabe Colors on Twitter. And feel free to drop a plug for you guys.
Yeah, I'm at Andrew J. Chapin on Twitter. Give me a follow. That's all I got to plug.
And I'm at Sir Dan Weiner. So send all hate mail to former Vice President Dick Cheney.
Oh, perfect. All right, guys. You guys have a great weekend, and we'll talk to you soon.
Yeah, you too. Thanks, Gabe.
Take care, Gabe.
Coloring Crypto.
Thanks for joining us on Coloring Crypto. You can reach me on Twitter at Gabe Colors. And hey, we're looking to do a series on non-fungible tokens, NFTs. The ability to use the blockchain to make unique pieces of art. Let me know if you've got info on that. We'll see you next time.